Welcome back. I'm Connie Sokol, your host, and we are talking to Marcie and Jared Austin. And we are so excited to have them because they are the owners of Latter-day Kids. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
We are so excited because I love to talk about this husband-wife team element. And it's been so fun that we have someone who can share this kind of experience and what that's really like on the back end and giving us the good, the bad, and the ugly. But being able to share that, it doesn't have to be just one or the other, or it kind of sometimes feels like parallel lives. But how do you do this together when you both want to get on board, and how do you kind of navigate that path? So I'm going to give you the scoops on the official bio, and then we're going to jump right in to get all the stories. Jared and Marcie are the owners and creators of Latter-day Kids. They have been working together for the last 4 years as a husband and wife team to deliver free weekly videos and lesson bundles that support gospel learning in the home. And now the videos have accumulated more than 16 million views. Congratulations. So good. Jared earned a bachelor's degree in art education from BYU, Idaho, and a master's degree in curriculum and instruction from the University of Phoenix. Jared is an art teacher by trade and worked as a public school teacher for 13 years. And then he resigned from his teaching career in order to focus on producing content for Latter-day Kids. To date, Jared has created more than 200 Latter-day Kids lessons and videos. Marcie spends her days homeschooling, loving on her Latter-day Kids, and doing her best to fit in creative endeavors between it all. Marcie does graphic design and photography work for Latter-day Kids, and she's also a freelance graphic designer. They have been married for 17 years and are the proud parents of 5 beautiful children who are the true inspiration behind Latter-day Kids, and who also happen to be the talented voice actors behind all of their videos. And they do a great job. I am actually so impressed. Very clear, very articulate, must have had some good training. So let's jump in. Let's go back to the genesis of this, because there's always like a really good story of a rumble of how it started. So tell us, who had the idea? How did it get started?
It really stemmed from us sitting down with our family, trying to do family home evening. And sometimes we had 4 boys under the age of 6 at the time, and it just felt like organized chaos.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness.
So it was pretty hectic trying to teach them the gospel. And we were trying to have these family home evening lessons. This was before Come Follow Me. We're talking 2015, 2014, just feeling some discouragement. Sometimes we'd see them come home from school and have these cool YouTube videos that taught them the ABCs and other, things that they were learning through media. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if they could learn the gospel in this other way and have another toolkit for parents to be able to teach the gospel with media? We're living in a digital age, and it's just a way that kids are learning now. And man, I just wish that there was more content out there to teach kids the gospel in a simple way through video. So idea was born. Latter-day Kids, we thought, we need this for our family. Let's make it happen. He had some animation background, art background, teaching background. I had started a couple businesses. So we grabbed the domain names and social media handles way back in 2015, 2016, somewhere in there. And just wanted to create it as a family home evening help. And then it evolved into Come Follow Me.
Wow. Did you find that when it hit COVID, did you see that it got more traction when people were at home?
Yeah, it absolutely had an impact on our views.
Yeah.
The videos were really sporadic for the first couple of years. It was maybe just every few months I would make one, and then just put it up on YouTube, see what would happen. It was originally just conceived, maybe this could be a YouTube channel and people could find these videos, trying to make videos for our kids to try to focus them and engage them and just give a little instruction. It was probably about 5 or 6 months before the stay-at-home church instructions that we started doing it weekly along with Come Follow Me. And so we were gaining a little bit of traction on Instagram. We were starting to pick up some views on YouTube and some subscribers, but I think at that time we had maybe just a few thousand subscribers on YouTube. Wasn't a whole lot, under 10,000 for sure. And when the stay-at-home church instruction came out from the church leadership, that day, it absolutely exploded. I can still remember this moment. We were over for dinner on a Sunday evening at her parents' house, and I was looking at the back end data on the app on YouTube, looking at our channel, and I could refresh it, and every 5 seconds there would be 10 more subscribers. Then I refresh it again, and it's like 15 more subscribers, refresh it again. And it was crazy how fast it took off, because people were just panicking, almost scrambling to find something. How are we going to make this church at home work for our kids? So a lot of people found us during that week.
Yeah.
That is incredible. And I'm thinking about that inspiration that you had received a few years before of to get this started, to do it for your own family, and just doing it for that. And that, like a good mom does. And I love that when you have those feelings of wanting to do that for your own family, you're not content with just keeping it here. You want to share it with everyone, whoever might benefit or might want it, and moving that forward. I just think that's fantastic. So you had this idea, you're doing these videos, you're kind of throwing it out there. You don't see a whole lot, right? So 10 subscribers and things like that. Before that COVID thing, was there a moment that you were thinking, I don't know if this is going to go anywhere. I think this is just going to be for our kids. And we're sure putting a lot of time and energy into this. Did you ever have a moment like that?
Definitely.
Yeah. And talking in marriage dynamic too, of starting a business, I think he saw the vision of it long before I did, and he'd be devoting a lot of hours to building Latter-day Kids. And at first I was a little bit like, okay, you just spent like 8 hours making this video and that's great, but we wanted you around. And so it was a little bit hard at first. And then and this is before the COVID thing happened, that we caught the vision together. And I think that when we got on the same page and we both had the vision together, there was definitely moments where we thought, what are we doing? For sure.
Well, just for a little bit of context too, I was still teaching full time during this period. And so I had a full-time job as a teacher, and then any spare time I could get, I would go in the garage and I'd be animating, and it would take me, at that point in time, I was still kind of learning the techniques, learning the process. So it would take me 50, 60, 70 hours total to make one video. And so over time, I would spend time doing that. And then I'd post these videos on YouTube, and, they would get a few hundred views, maybe. Yeah. And then back in that time, it was different rules. Now there's a certain threshold you have to hit to be able to monetize your videos on YouTube. But back then you could monetize it right away. And so I remember one time I looked and saw that I had made 25 cents, on a Sunday or something like that. And I was like, it's working.
And I'm like, it's not working.
We just need more views, and you do multiply the views times this much time and this many videos. And then that was a moment where she was like, yeah, no, this is not worth 25 cents. So yeah, it was definitely a process.
It is so good. There are people right now that are going to be listening when this goes live, and they're going to be like, oh, I so hear you. Because so much, I think of Elder Uchtdorf, where he said, sometimes we want to plant the seed of corn one night and we want corn the next day. Yeah, and it's justifiable, right? When you're spending 50, 60 hours on a video, you're like, can we see something come from this? So let's go to that. What have you seen? That is genius, by the way, of these short videos. They're beautiful, beautifully done. You got these short videos because kids' attention span, never mind adults. And you got these great videos because they are so used to seeing everything visually and having it be in some kind of a movie. That was so ahead of the curve. What is the impact that you're seeing? Have you gotten emails or testimonials from people, or just even for your own kids, of how they're really getting gospel growth through these videos?
Yeah, we've had all of the above, really. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from parents and primary teachers and people who have used the videos. Even some missionaries have reached out to us and said that they use the videos because they teach the principles of the gospel in a simple way. So they'll pick a particular video, show it to investigators who they're teaching and working with. So yeah, we've gotten a lot of feedback that way. And we definitely see it with our kids. That's been the most important and the most impactful. The goal with the videos was to capture their intention, capture their imagination, and then while I've got them, relate it to the gospel some way and just create some kind of connection. Like, for example, we have a video called The Duck Who Didn't Want to Share, and it's about sharing. And the duck's name is Drake, the duck. And so now whenever we're, go for a family bike ride on the Greenbelt path or something, and we pass some ducks, then the kids are like, look, it's Drake the duck. And then remember the lesson. That's kind of the idea, is to just connect the principles of the gospel to real world experiences that the kids have and that they relate to and that's on their minds. And so we see that with our kids, and it's definitely impacted the frequency and our ability to have constant gospel centered conversations with our kids, because it just comes up a lot more.
Oh, that is genius, because I know so many parents I talk to, and myself included, how to weave this in natural conversation without them going, oh, you're just talking about a conference talk again, right? But this, especially with young kids, this visual, it's a story. It makes them think of just story time, just every stories that they're, reading. And yet now that opens the door for that normal and natural ways, like Elder Uchtdorf says, of being able to talk about the gospel, and you don't feel like you're trying to shove it down their throat. That's gorgeous. Have you found, I noticed that you put on there different languages. There's Portuguese and Spanish. Have you found people have like wanted that? Where did that come from? Was it just, hey, we want to make this more open to people, or were people seeking that?
So when we started exploding during COVID, we got probably more messages. Like we get grateful parents, like, thank you so much for these videos, but we get a ton of messages that say, can you please translate this into our language? So we got a ton of messages asking for translation, and
Mongolian, German,
Dutch,
Wow.
all of these, just people reaching out from all over the world wanting it in their language, which was beautiful. And we just thought, how can we make this happen? We have a team, right? We don't have,
Right.
we don't
Quick, learn German. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. He speaks Czech. It's not that useful. Anyway, so, that reaches a very small population. So we just had lots of people asking to help, though. We had people volunteering and saying, hey, could I help you translate this? And hey, can I translate this for my stake in Mexico? And so we just had a lot of outreach from people just wanting to help. And then we ended up having a sister in Brazil that decided that she wanted to take on translating the videos for us in Spanish and Portuguese.
There's probably about a dozen different languages that different volunteers are working on independently, translating all the videos into different languages.
That's incredible. And especially people volunteering, that's a lot of work. I've served in Japan and really badly translated in a few zone conferences. And I have some teeny idea of trying to get a translation and get the concept across and get it in a good way. I mean, yes, at least it's for kids, so that's a little more helpful. But for them to volunteer, and I think for people listening, I think this is such an untapped resource. A lot of times when people are trying to get their message out, they think they've got to pay all these people, and where am I going to do payroll and all of that? But I love this idea that you're putting it out there and people are saying, hey, I can help. And we can even be more proactive and say, would you like to volunteer? Even if it's just 10 hours a month or 5 hours a month, would you like to do that? And then letting them know, how much you appreciate that and making it a win-win. I just love that. That just makes it even more of a lovely story and experience that you're moving this forward in that way. I would love to know, as you've done these videos, as you've moved it forward, you have not just involved volunteers, but you've involved your kids. Like we had mentioned earlier, they do the voiceover. What else do they do on this? And how have those skills, what skills have they gained from being a part of this sort of family venture now?
Oh, they've gotten involved in a lot of things now. And from the beginning, they contribute ideas all the time. They're so naturally creative and they're so into all of it. Just one small example, one of our more popular videos is the Armor of God video. And it's in the style of a video game, as if there's a little player who's trying to go through levels and there's arrows being fired at him and rockets being fired at him. And the first part of the game, he doesn't put on his armor. And so he keeps getting hit, and then he has to start over, and then he gets hit again and starts over. And eventually he realizes it makes a lot more sense to put on the armor of God. And so he puts on the armor of God. And he then is basically invincible, like if you have the star in Mario Brothers and you're running through everything. So it's a lot of fun to watch. Yeah. And that was basically the concept of the video. And I had it finished and I showed it to the kids. And they said, yeah, that's great, Dad. But you know what you should do is you should make a big giant rocket come at the end and completely blow him up and make a big hole appear. And he falls in the hole. But then he jumps out of the hole and he keeps going. And I was like, that's a pretty good idea. And so I added that in before I uploaded it. And that, became one of the more popular videos. And that's the moment everybody cites that their kids really laughed at and connect with. So they contribute with ideas like that. And obviously with the voice acting. And as they're getting older, now we have a son who just turned 15, and he's actually becoming quite the skilled special effects specialist. And he's learning to animate. He's learning to do stop motion and things like that, like video production. He's really into a lot of that stuff. And so he's getting more and more involved on the editing and animating and content creation side of things as well.
That is fantastic. Because I know when I'm talking to people, and myself included, and I'm sure you felt this way too. How is this taking away from my kids? Is this going to negatively impact them? With the time, like you were saying, spending so much time on video editing and things like that. But then you see these skill sets that they get, and then this connection as a family. My daughter does graphic design for us for what I do, and that just came about. It wasn't like you're making them, okay, you do this, but maybe sometimes that's what good parents do. It's for your good, right? The veggies. But you think about this, that what a great place for them to learn these skills and apply it and see it in such a purpose-driven way, that they're putting something out there that's blessing people's lives, and they're learning how to do that as well. And now it's just a great skill they can springboard from for their own lives. Absolutely wonderful. So let's just move to, now that's the effect on the kids. Let's talk about you two again. I feel like I'm, Dr. Ruth or something like, hey, let's talk about you two. But let's talk about what you have learned in navigating these roles, back and forth. I'm sure there's needed to be some, ebb and flow, some give and take, all of those, isms. But what have been some of the things that you've learned as a couple about yourselves and about each other in moving this forward?
Well, first, I think learning to really work as a team and to support each other. So when he needed to put in a lot of long hours, especially in the beginning when it was pretty gritty, to just have faith in each other and just say, okay, I got your back. I will take the kids. I will support you in any way that I can. I feel like if you can't get on that same page, that can be really, really challenging. And I think it was challenging in the beginning when I was struggling a little bit to get on board with his vision. But I think once we both saw it together, then I moved into a mode of how can I contribute, how can I help, and how can I use my skill sets to help too. And I think that helped a ton to just have us start collaborating on things. And I started helping with the photography and the graphic design and trying to support him in what he was trying to get done, instead of, being resentful or being frustrated that he was putting in hours. And not that there wasn't ever times that it felt a little bit too much, because there was times when it felt like too much, but just trying to keep that goal in mind as you're navigating that hard space of managing a family and a business and a full-time job.
And still finding time to sleep at some juncture,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I love that you bring that up, because there is that moment, that mile stretch of faith that you're not seeing the results, and then you're not seeing it again. And there is that logical piece of, hey, the family's still here. And so for those that are listening, I really appreciate you being candid and being able to say there were those times, and it was frustrating, and I did feel a little bit of that. And I'm watching that I am the only one that's kind of doing this, and we don't even know if this is going to go, and he's tinkering out there. However, it sounds like you did also feel like there was a spiritual feel about this as well. It wasn't just, yeah, I want to go and just like do some creation of videos, that there was an underlying element of, this is actually trying to help our family and maybe some others. Was that a part of it too?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, one day I still remember a front porch talk. We were sitting in chairs on the front porch. Sun was setting, kids were in bed, just like that, in the summer, those beautiful summer nights. And we were just sitting there. And this was kind of that tipping point where we decided to go all in and do Come Follow Me instead of family home evening videos. And that commitment that we were making right then, that idea that I put forth, he realized, like, this is going to be me doing a video a week. That's going to mean, 50 to 60 hours extra work for this family. Can we really do that? We both just felt like we were supposed to do that in our hearts. We just knew that this needed to happen. And I think that moment, I just will never forget it. It was what sustained us along the way, is just knowing that we had this vision together and that we were going to go for it together.
I think I have to give her credit. I think she was more the one that was feeling the inspiration to make that change and that adjustment, because like I mentioned, I was still teaching full time at this point in time. So I had a full-time job, and that's a little bit more than a full-time job. Like, teaching full time is, you take it home with you. You have a lot of work that you're doing. And she proposed this idea on the front porch. She's like, we need to be on Instagram, because that's where all the moms are looking for their stuff for their kids. And we need to do it every week with Come Follow Me. And I remember being a little bit like, I stepped back a little bit and I said, are you sure? Do you realize what you're saying, what you're asking? Because sometimes there's been a little bit of conflict and frustration with trying to do, one video every couple of months. But if we're doing it every single week, that's a minimum 40 hours a week extra that I've got to be working on and making a video, in addition to teaching full time. Like, that's all the Saturdays, that's all the evenings, and that's some of my sleep. And so that's really going to impact our household. majorly, like, are you sure you want to do this? And she was like, yeah, I think we need to do this. And
yeah, like, we
so
need to do this. I don't know if I want to do it either. It kind of felt like Jonah in the well. I don't want to go to Nineveh, but we need to do this.
That just, I have goosebumps. I don't know about anybody else who will be listening, but just goosebumps, seriously. That, and I think that that feeling of called, of like you said, all in. We are all in, and we have burned the ships, and we're not turning back. We are going forward. I think there's a blessing packet. It's not doctrine, but I think there's a blessing packet that comes with that, that when we do take that step, sorry, it kind of tearing me up, but when we do take that step, when we can feel the fork in the road, and any creative knows they get to that place, and you've just got to be all in and say, okay, this, we can feel it. Like you said, we don't want it. I'd really rather not, but we know this is the path we need to go on. And I think Heavenly Father just has so many of those Mario gold coins down the path, you know,
Yeah,
that ahead as you go down. A little nod to my 11-year-old. He'll be happy about that one. So as we think about that, and as you've had those moments, I would love to know, just kind of as we're getting to a close here, has there been a surprise or unexpected learning? Any other moments that you've had that maybe you didn't anticipate, something that was really good that happened, or something that was really hard that you were able to make it through and you didn't know how you were going to do it? You know, for creatives, those unexpected moments are so powerful, because you really do see the hand of the Lord. You're like, I know that we did not do that because we could not have done that. Have you had any of those moments that could come to mind?
Well, I'll share something. I don't know if I can identify a particular moment, but over time, it's been a slow, gradual process. I feel like I have learned a lot about what it means to create in the creative process. And the theme of this podcast is called To Create. And I think it kind of came through my own journey creating these videos and overcoming these obstacles, but also observing our children. I think most parents can relate to this. When you enter a room where kids have been playing and you just see this trail of what initially just looks like destruction, right? It's crazy stuff all over the place. And when you start looking closer, there's very specific choices that were made. Like, the pillows are not on the couch where they're supposed to be, but they're arranged in a specific way. Or there's like a step ladder that was dragged in from the garage, and there's a bowl that was put on there, and inside the bowl there's like a certain amount of water and some little rocks and some leaves, and there's a little spoon that they've been stirring, and then there's leaves on the steps of the ladder, and then there's sticks all in a line leading up to the step ladder, and you're just like, what were they doing? What are they making? But the thing that I've realized is they're actively creating. And just a little while back, I realized that the very first 5 words in all the scripture that we have, our modern scriptures, the very first 5 words are, in the beginning, God created.
Mm.
That's the beginning. That's the very first thing that God teaches us about who he is. And we call him a creator. That's one of his titles, in the way that he identifies and wants us to identify him. And that's in all of us. We're sons and daughters of God. And because of that, we've inherited his capacity to create. It's in all of us, and it's in our children. And by extension, it's also in me. And that's helped me to learn and give myself permission, even though there's fear and there's self-doubt and there's apprehensions. You know, like when I first put the first video out on YouTube, it was scary. It was kind of nerve-wracking. It's like, what if people don't like it? It just was a little scary, you know, and it's hard to create. Like, when you sit down to make some art or something, the hardest thing is sitting down to do it, not really necessarily doing it. Like, there's just those fears and apprehensions, and we want the circumstances to be right. But it's been wonderful to realize and recognize that we were, all of us, created to create. It's in all of us, whether it's in the visual arts or whether we're in a home creating an experience for our children, or trying to create a family culture, trying to create memories. No matter what it is, it's just part of our divine nature is to create, and just the ability to embrace that.
So gorgeously put. It just reminded me, years ago, I remember coming in the house and 7 kids, and you can imagine the damage, you know, they're all younger, and just walking in the door and just seeing it and then thinking this phrase, the hum of a home, and doing just what you were talking about. The piano books were falling off, but they'd practiced, and they had the watercolors and everything out on the kitchen table. It was all over, but they had been painting. And there was the sports stuff all spilling out of the entryway, not put in the tubs, but they had been playing sports. They've been doing sports. And it hit me. This is all part of the hum of a home. It's all part of creating this family, and just what you said, creating this culture if we have eyes to see. Absolutely love that. Marcie, I'm going to give you the last word. Did you have an experience, an unexpected learning or unexpected thing that you saw the hand of the Lord, or you felt this unexpected thing that he gave you?
Yeah, I think just the whole journey of Latter-day Kids has been completely unexpected, just of how far it has gone, how many people it has reached. You know, we did create it to bless our family and then maybe a few, right? And I just has been amazing to me that I just keep thinking of, this has been mentioned in a few talks, so I don't know who to attribute it to, but a tapestry being weaved. And sometimes we can only see the bottom of the tapestry, and we can't see, we see the mess, we see things, you know, obstacles come, setbacks come, failures come, and it just looks like the underside of a tapestry. And then God flips it over. And he has flipped it over in our lives, and we have seen that he was weaving something that we could not create, or that we didn't even mean to create. I mean, we were creating, but he took it and made it so much more.
Better. Yeah.
He made it better. And he always will, because he loves us, and he will use us. He will, and like, glory back to him. He will use us to further his work, and everything that's happened with Latter-day Kids has been him. And we just are just so grateful to be instruments in his hands and be a part of it. And anyway, he just creates something beautiful.
So beautiful. I love that imagery. And it's so powerful for those listening, because we have those, just like you said, those stitches that we think, I'm just going to rip it all out. And sometimes we have to, but then we don't want to go back. We don't go back to start sewing it. We don't want to go back and finish it. And yet he, just like you said, he can take anything and flip it. And through the Savior's atonement, he can make it amazing and purposeful and influential. And I keep thinking, as you both are talking, what if you wouldn't have taken that step? What if you wouldn't have made that first video? What if you wouldn't have believed? And then what if you wouldn't have been all in? Something about your whole heart and soul gives you a whole heart and soul reward. It's that cast the crumbs on the water and you get loaves back. And I listened to the things you've brought to the table, your loaves and fishes that you brought, and the things you've had to learn, and how you've had to negotiate it. And it doesn't come easy. It's not dropped in your lap, but how you have persevered. And I love that you're not making it about you, but kudos to you both for continuing and being on the same page and walking that same path together to now influence millions of people and bring them to the Savior. It's just gorgeous, beautifully done, and so inspiring to all of us listening. Those that are listening are going to want to reach out to you. What's the best way that they can connect with you?
Through our website or email, latterdaykids@gmail.com. They can send us messages or talk to us there, or find us on the website or Instagram.
Yep. And we're Latter-day Kids on Instagram, and it's latterdaykids.com for the website. So yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. We wish you every success. And I'm just so grateful that you were able to share these stories, and so beautifully, candidly too. Thank you for sharing all the experiences and the highs and the lows and all the things in between, and just wish you every success in this. You're blessing people's lives so beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And if you loved this interview as much as I did, it was so wonderful. You can go and listen to the other interviews that we have: Steve Young, Jane Clayson Johnson, Napoleon Dynamite, aka John Heater. If you want to check those out, they are all so generously sharing their experiences, their highs and their lows, and what to do and what to avoid in their creative journey as you and they are being called to create.